Golden Rain Foundation here in Laguna Woods is responsible for a lot of stuff. I'm going to rattle through just a few things. We're going to touch on them all in a second here. 7 clubhouses, 5 pools, 2 different fitness centers, equestrian center, all these trails, 2 garden centers, 2 golf courses, tennis complex, plus the fine arts and crafts facilities. And Ben, you oversee it all. I want to welcome Jim Hopkins to our program. He's the president of the Golden Rain Foundation.
Thank you, Michael. And you forgot, and a partridge and a pear tree.
Right? I couldn't. I just the list. I would do the whole 10-minute or whole segment, you know, with you. So welcome to the program. We want to kind of go through a lot of the things that and more. Some of the things we talked about here on this major list, on this mega list.
Yeah, and thank you, Michael, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. You know, one of the things as board members, we're always dealing with issues and problems and all those kinds of good things. And yes, they do need to be resolved. But one of the things that we need to always remember is while we spend time dealing with that 5% of issues and problems, sometimes we forget the 95%. So 5% occupies 95% of our brain.
Right.
So
it's easy to dwell on the negative and not think of, when you drive through this community, when you drive through Laguna Woods Village, as an outsider, I don't live here, I've driven through, I've seen a lot of the locations doing stories and just visiting the areas. It's beautiful, it looks well maintained, it's quiet, it seems safe and lovely, and so there's a lot to offer here in the community. But like you said, there's that 5% that it keeps you guys busy. That's for sure.
It keeps us busy, and it keeps me gainfully employed. And oh, by the way, we do not get money for this.
Yeah, employed as a.
Okay. There are actually some people that stop me in the hall and say, "How much do they pay you for this?" And I have to say, no, this is volunteer.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought I'd recap. This is the 55-plus gated community. It's been here 60 years. And by the way, we'll be celebrating 60 years, I believe, in September.
Yes, yeah, that's the big anniversary
and,
celebration.
It was set up as one of 4, Ross Cortese was a developer, 4 so-called affordable resort-style living for seniors under a shared cost concept.
Right.
What does that mean? It means that you can provide a lot of amenities, some of them paid for, but not fully paid for by the users. And by doing that and charging every resident a per man or per month, you can have everybody satisfied. So it provides for just a fantastic community here.
Right. It's a service, and like the postal service or the park service. You pay to go in. Sometimes you pay for stamps, but it doesn't cover everything.
It doesn't cover everything. So it's an honor, but it can be a challenge to deal with that. With 18,000 residents, 3.4 square miles. As I said, there were 4 of them set up. Okay. Of those 4, okay, our GRF fee is actually the second lowest. We're second to Seal Beach. We're at $230. The GRF fee is $230 per man or per month. We're at Seal Beach is at $215.
Okay.
Okay, and when you compare amenities.
Right. This was the second. Seal Beach was the original, and this is the second in terms of leisure world communities, and they went big down here.
And our location, you can't beat it. Okay?
Absolutely.
And so you already mentioned all of the clubhouses and all the things we do. The History Center, the library, 4 pools, all those kinds of things, the fitness centers, those things that we, quite honestly, sometimes just take for granted. I know myself, I don't use as much as I can. Right now, I guess my amenity is governance. Okay. And I do have some fun doing that, although it can be challenging at times. But garden centers, arts and crafts. We also engage with 88 Saddleback affiliated college classes.
Right, right. The Emeritus uses a lot of those facilities because why not? They have your amazing facilities and everything's kind of built in and being supported here. So Emeritus comes in and says, hey, for instance, let's talk about one thing, the ceramics area. There are kilns in there. There are molds. There's multiple rooms. The clay. That's an expensive, fun hobby for our folks to be able to come in here and just be able to use, right? And some of that has to be paid for. You're not going to charge every resident the actual cost of what it takes to maintain those areas.
Yeah. And we actually have residents that will donate some of these items to us. So we're very fortunate in so many ways, and that's why I thought I'd take the time. And we've got some challenges, okay? But I thought that I would take the time this time to show ourselves, okay, to be grateful for what we do have, rather than focus on the things that need, slight adjusting.
Sure, sure.
And one of the ways we all participate, all right, is through governance. Okay, and that's a critical thing. The trust, the Golden Rain Foundation set up a trust. Okay, that trust is the basis for actually the 4 of the organizations like us. Like I said, the Seal Beach, Walnut Creek, and Silver Spring, Maryland is the other one. They were all set up with a trust. That's the foundation. And so since 2016, when PCM moved out, okay, and we set up VMS, okay, we've been self-governed. And that has its own challenges.
Right.
Its own challenges. As a result, we've got 5 corporate entities that we have to work with, right? 5 of them. And we have 47 directors, all of us residents, okay?
Yeah, all of them coming in with their own experience and opinions about what should be the direction of things.
Yep. And that itself can be a challenge.
Right.
Can be a significant challenge. But we've been operating this way for 60 years, okay? And by the way, we didn't always have 3 mutuals. At one point in time, we had over 50 mutuals, okay? Similar to what the other facilities have, the other
communities. Yeah.
Other communities, that's the word I'm looking for. The other communities have. For instance, Seal Beach has 16, Walnut Creek has 23, and Silver Spring has 29.
Wow.
All right. And so they function in a slightly different way, even though the trust and all are basically the same. They function in reality in quite a different way, because we've got 2 very, very large mutuals and one mutual called the Towers, Mutual 50, the Towers. With 47 directors, we have to be, as they are, collaborative versus hierarchical, okay? And sometimes that creates all kinds of issues, but that's what we do. We try to collaborate. Because our responsibilities, GRF responsibilities, are these amenities. And the others deal with the mutuals.
Right.
Now, we interface, because obviously the people who belong to the mutuals, us, okay, also use the amenities.
Right.
So there has to be a collaborative effort, and we do our best to accommodate that.
Yeah. And I think, the thing is, I think a lot of people don't realize the network of complication that goes into making all of this work. Like you said, you have to work with all of these folks, make sure everybody's, and you're also supporting an entire community in terms of the services that are provided, the equestrian center, the golf courses, and all those kinds of things that everybody has access to and can benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, some of the more obscure, I call them obscure because I don't use them, some of the obscure amenities, lawn bowling. In fact, I had the president of lawn bowling, because I show up one day and say, hey, I talked to you about this once before, and I was amazed that he had remembered, because lawn bowling is quite honestly something I'm not familiar with in terms of entertainment and leisure time. But it's pretty big, it's not small. We actually have lawn bowling tournaments here.
I've been down to that lawn bowling area, and it's immaculate. It's wonderful. It looks like you could hold a community down there just on the space it takes up.
Yeah, and many of these are world-class facilities. Our table tennis is a world-class facility. Okay, so our bridge club entertains world-class competition. So. We're not small.
Yeah, it's not something stuffed in a closet. When you guys, the things that are here are really the high end of everything. And I think there's an appreciation for that from the people who are using it. The lawn bowlers, I can't imagine they're no more than thrilled with their facility in terms of the size. When you go somewhere else and see a lawn bowling facility, it's like, this is nothing like the one here.
Yeah, that's why it's called resort style living at an affordable price. I mean. Again, we have our things we have to deal with, and that's where the governance comes in. But I think, I like to stop and take stock of what we do have, okay? Because I deal with, or the boards deal with, I'll call it issues and problems and things to move forward. Not everything is an issue, okay? We've had some great initiatives. The ERP is one. I won't go through an explanation of that, but that will transform the way we do business. It's kind of the underpinnings of all the administrative systems. Okay, we've changed a few things around in our planning system, how we do planning, financial planning. So there's a lot of little, I'll call it strategic things that we've implemented as GRF that have supported the structure and governance structure as well as our amenity structure that we don't even see. We just changed the way we are starting to price some of the priced amenities, okay? Before, the pricing used to come from the committee involved in the specific operations. Now it's going to come from finance, okay? The recommendation will come from finance. And every fee will be reviewed within a 3-year period, meaning some fees will be reviewed every year, some fees every 2 years, and some fees every 3 years. Okay. What this does in being centralized with finance affords the opportunity for our total shared cost to be looked at on an enterprise level rather than amenity by amenity. And so we think that's a good thing for the community.
Yeah. And talk about that. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but the grandness of the work that you guys have to do to kind of cover everything that GRF covers. There's not I can't imagine there's a day that doesn't go by where you're not thinking about multiple areas that need attention, that need to be improved upon, they need to talk to, work with committees on. It's it's a grand undertaking as a volunteer.
Yeah, it is, and thanks to all the volunteers. Okay, the committees, our committee chairs, the people who work on the committees, and by the way, those committees include not only GRF members, but mutual board members, as well as participants in those activities. Right. In other words, the residents. So we make everybody involved in that. And so we have, what is that, about 14 or 15 committees, regular standing committees, that we use to get the input from residents and make certain decisions relative to those operations and those amenities. And so it works well. Nothing's perfect because we're people, but it works extraordinarily well. Yeah, and I think that one of the interesting things about the committees is that they really take the deeper dives that the board members just don't have the time to do, and which is the reality of that, right? I mean, you can't, they take hours and hours, multiple meetings before they come to you with a presentation. And they've covered like, okay, maybe this isn't the best way, we're going to do it this way, here's why we're doing it this way, and by the time it comes to you, you guys are saying, okay, you hold those committee recommendations with esteem in terms of the weight they carry. Absolutely, and the key there is that's where the community gets involved. Right. Okay, the community residents get involved at the committee level. And I know many times they think that GRF is making, well, we may make the final decision as a board, but the active activity and the suggestions and the influence is really at the committee level. Right. All right. Yeah, GRF may make a different decision based on its overview, but the committees are so vital and so important. So I urge everybody to get involved in the committee of your choice or committees of your choice, because that's where the action is. CAC, Community Activities Committee, big one, Finance Committee, Mobility and Vehicles, the Broadband Ad Hoc, which is actually today a closed committee. But all those committees are the lifeblood of what this community is about. Is there certain frustration, and I don't want to dive down into the minutiae too much, but is there certain frustration sometimes when you as a board have taken the recommendations committee, all that work's done, and then someone maybe comes to a meeting and says, why are you doing it this way, who hasn't been in part of the process? Why did you make this decision? And it's like, oh, gosh, I wish I could go through hours and give you a detailed answer to this question, but here's, the makings of it got here from square one, and we're talking about now you're on square 52. This is, this is how we got here. I'm not. Yeah, there's a level of frustration there, but I've been on the board for a while, so unfortunately, it's to be expected. The phrase is, well, I didn't know about this. Right. And, well, you feel like saying, and many times our board members will say, well, we've been talking about this for 6 months. Right.
And when the change comes,
yeah.
when change is going to be voted on, or fees increase are going to be voted on, that's when it grabs people's attention because they heard, hey, I hear they're going to make a change to the hours somewhere, a change to the fees. Well, we didn't do this on a whim kind of thing. And I think that's the thing that a lot of folks don't understand is by the time they hear it, this has been something that's been going on for months, if not a year or so, in terms of the decision-making process to get to that point.
Yeah, and I don't, it's unfortunately is to be expected. So you listen because, be honest with you, everybody that gets up there at a GRF meeting has something to say, and we do listen. We listen intently. That doesn't necessarily change what the committee has done, but it is something that perhaps may be considered.
Absolutely. In terms of all the committee work, you do a little bit of committee work. What are some of the committees you serve on in terms of like the dives you take? Because as a board member, you're in some of these committee areas.
Yeah, before becoming president, I was part of the Information Technology Advisory Committee, and I was part of the Space Planning Ad Hoc Committee. In fact, chair of each one of those. I chose to keep that position on those two because of the criticality and importance of those two. And some of the technical aspects of it, both business-wise as well as the technical part of it. So I thought since I had a better transitional knowledge of it, that I should keep those and see it to the end, or at least, to the end. And it's worked out, I think, with the ITAC committee, which is the ERP, that's what we've been talking about.
Right.
I think we're well on the track to having that entire thing completed, probably sometime towards the end of the year, maybe into the first or second quarter. But it's going to transition the administrative processes within VMS, and therefore serve the community a lot better.
Like we mentioned before, that's where the real work gets done on the committee level. What would be your recommendation to folks who want to get involved, but maybe they don't want to run for a board seat? Just is committee work kind of a place to start for people to get a real understanding of the work and the governance that goes on?
Absolutely. So even as a resident, you have a lot more involvement. There's a lot less formality to resident participation. For instance, in a GRF board meeting, you only have a certain time based on a certain subject to talk about it. In a committee meeting, there's more give and take. So when you have a special interest in a particular amenity or operation or service.
There's landscape committees, there's security committees, there's the technology committees. If you have an area where you're in questioning things are going on, that's a place to maybe to jump into, right?
Absolutely. That's where, and when you think about it, 18,000 people can be involved in running their community. That's unheard of. And yet we accomplish it through the committee system.
Absolutely.
Okay. The key here, though, is to stay informed. Okay.
Right. That knowledge is power, that's for sure. On one of our slides here, we want to talk about influence, GRF management, amenities, and kind of a continuation of that.
Well, I encourage everybody because we have elections every year, okay? And effectively, each board could turn over approximately one third every year. So it's important that everybody participates. So it's important if you're going to run for a board position, and I encourage people to do that because that's where you really get to serve your community and see the impact of it. First is to learn, okay? There's a lot to learn, okay? And then come with an approach of serving, not necessarily to patch something up or to fix something or join the 5% that occupies 95% of our brain, okay? But to come in and try to influence the direction of a particular amenity or any other area that you feel like is important. But keep in mind, you're dealing with everything, not just that one thing that you think is important.
Right, and there's a historical knowledge that goes, like you said, if there's turnover every few years, you don't have well, let's address this. No, we actually did that 5 years ago kind of thing. So I think there's important to have continuity as board members that run for re-election. There's a good reason for that, and that continuity can stay in place, or people who've at least served on committees for a few years and then they run because they understand the makings of everything.
I'm glad you brought that up, Michael. That's invaluable, okay? We've had situations where people have come in with no background, no experience.
And zero institutional knowledge of how things work.
And unfortunately ascend to key leadership positions, and that can cause some havoc. But it's important, though, as you said, to continue to be involved. when we have training for all board members, the GRF sponsors training in the trust and in the governance process here. We have an attorney come in and give us a tops-down view of what we have here. But a key to all of that, aside from learning all of that, is to stay informed as board members, as residents. Okay, and there's so many ways. Yeah, team up. And by the way, I'm going to when I send out my newsletter today, I'm going to give you a link to Team Up. That's where you are able to see when every single meeting happens, whether it's a committee or a board meeting. All you have to do is, maybe you can learn, click on it, okay, and then put it actually in your calendar, specifically those areas that you are concerned with. We have TV6, thank you.
Right here.
And we have Granicus, the internet, website. After broadcast meetings, we actually, many of them are on YouTube, okay? So what's up in the village? Every Friday, okay? I send out a newsletter once a month. And of course, attendance at all meetings. Mutual meetings are key. That's actually, besides the committees, that's where the action or your input to those actions actually takes place.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, Jim Hawkins, president of Golden Rain Foundation, thank you so much for joining us today. Very informative and wonderful. Hope to have you back soon.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.